Are you tired of losing races to other players? Do you feel like their cars always seem faster than yours? So stay tuned for these 3 advanced tips that will help you reach those unique players on the racetrack, including a bonus tip at the end of the video. Many drivers learn about the racing line early on, taking full advantage of it. However, many fail to realize that there is no single best way to complete a lap on the track to be the fastest. There are actually 3 types of lines, one for each type of wheel drive. This corner is a stretch of a Spanish track, the Circuit de Catalunya. It's common to touch the inside curb at this center point. However, it's common to adjust this point further forward or backward depending on which driving wheels your car has. The cars are divided into front, rear, and all-wheel drive. In rear-wheel drive cars, the race line is the classic one. Usually, you aim for a centered apexing at the middle of the curve. For front and all-wheel drive cars, it's usually best to make contact a little farther around the corner. That is, if you have a rear-wheel drive car, you should brake before the corner, turn the wheel when you're releasing the brake, take the turn with little or no acceleration, and gradually rev up the car as you turn the wheel back to neutral position, while exiting the corner. Now, if your car is front-wheel drive, things get a little different. What we want to avoid is understeer a corner exit due to either too much cornering speed or too much acceleration while exiting. Therefore, it's better to take a late apex approach. To do this, brake a little later before the corner to turn at once and point the steering wheel towards the turn exit. Turning this way enables a stronger acceleration which pulls the car straight. If this acceleration was done mid-corner, as on a classic rear-wheel drive layout, the front tires would slide away. This technique can also be applied to all-wheel drive cars, which usually go sideways if you give too much throttle in the middle of the corner. Therefore, in front and all-wheel drive cars, it's good to take a later apex line, while rear-wheel drive behaves better in a centered tangency. But all this only happens if you subscribe to Racing Legends to learn and develop in racing, ring the bell to receive all tips, and if you brake the right way. Each car brakes differently, each driver brakes in different ways in the same car, each weather condition makes you brake differently. Still, to finish a corner as quickly as possible, it's important to be consistent and consistently fast. In braking, this agility comes from strong braking without locking up the front. Therefore, the driver is always stepping as hard as they can on the brakes without exceeding the grip limit of tires, especially the front ones. This is like walking a fine line between sliding wide and getting the shortest braking distance and therefore the quickest lap time. To achieve this consistency, drivers train not only how much to hit the brakes and maintain this pressure and muscle memory, but how far into the braking zone to start decelerating. This distance could not be calculated every time they approach the corner, so drivers use the braking point concept. Braking points are markers on and around the track that help drivers know the ideal braking spot. Often tracks have distance to turn markers, which are usually located beside the tarmac, with markings of 200, 100 meters, etc. Drivers start braking a distance such as just before the 100 meter mark or between the 200 and 150 mark. But there aren't always signs for distance around corners. In that case, it's very common to look for other references, such as a feature of the barrier, the beginning of the guardrail, a tire wall, the beginning of curbs, or even a tree nearby. In the case of Forza Horizon 4, I use traffic signs, which are amazingly well placed at the blind curves at sprints like Derwent Lakeside. If you want to see the video I made on that track giving tips like this, click on the annotation that appears in your video. Now that you know when to brake for a turn, let's finish the job by going through the turn to the end. This tip is for those who, when they get into a corner and are going too fast to complete it, they start turning the wheel over and over, hoping that one day the car will get back on track and stay out of trouble. But as everyone knows, this is the most flawed technique in existence. To stop any of these things from happening, you have to start turning the car the right amount for each corner. To do this, take an electric car and drive it on the track. When you get into a corner, go at a speed that can complete the corner and start turning the wheel without accelerating. You'll notice one thing right away. The car makes no noise, which is why we chose an electric car. Then you'll notice one of two things. Either the car won't make tire noises during cornering, which means you're not turning far enough, or your car will make that noise, in which case you are turning too much. Ideally, hold the steering wheel at an angle that is on the edge of these two worlds, starting to make noise but very little, making neither too much noise or no sound at all. In addition, there's another signal for those who have force feedback steering wheel. The sign is how heavy the wheel feels at each angle of its rotation. When you start turning the wheel, the force with which it resists your movement is 1. But when you get tire saturation point, that is, when it can't take it anymore and it starts to slide, you feel less resistance. In the case of a 900 degrees of rotation wheel, such as the G920, the G29, 27 or 25, this angle is around 90 degrees to each side. At about this angle, depending on the car and tires you are using, the force the steering wheel imposes on your arms is lessened and you feel it gets lighter to steer the wheel. But remember, you can only feel these nuances if you are relaxed and get in the zone. That means being focused on the race in such a way that after a few laps you start to flow down the track in autopilot. Your mind already tells you where the braking points are, what the right speed for a turn is, and how fast you can accelerate. It's common when you become more used to racing for that to happen, and you can focus on the small details that make a difference and put everything else on autopilot. If you keep dedicating yourself, sometime you'll get there if you don't already have that skill. So next time you're on the track or behind the wheel in racing games, remember to train the specific racing line for your car type, develop braking points to arrive at corners at optimum speed so as to take them by an earlier, halfway or later apex, and remember to turn the wheel until the tires start singing, but very quietly, to start getting faster and faster to become a racing legend.